Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March Virtual Open House. And thank you so much for joining our Engineering Entrepreneurship Pathways presentation and panel discussion. If entrepreneurship or starting your own company or being innovative excites you, then you're definitely in the right place today. I'm going to be joined by three incredible individuals in just a couple minutes who will be sharing their entrepreneurial journeys with you. But just before we do get started, if you do have any questions at any point during this session, feel free to submit questions using the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. And you're always welcome to email enginfo@uwaterloo.ca for any specific questions about admissions or, of course, entrepreneurship. So before we do begin, I do want to take this moment to do a University of Waterloo territorial acknowledgement. We do want to acknowledge that the University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses. And this happens through research, through teaching and learning, and community building. And it all comes from our U Waterloo's Office of Indigenous Relations, as that is the central place for all things Indigenous community building, support, and academia as well. At any point during today's session or after today, you're welcome and encouraged to visit nativeland.ca to learn more about the land that we all occupy. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we have three terrific individuals who are leading, moderating, sharing their experiences with you all today when it comes to entrepreneurship. So at this moment, I do want to invite Dr. Athena, Eileen, and Michael here to the virtual stage to briefly introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Athena D'Amato, and I attended the University of Waterloo back in 2008, one of the early days of the Masters of Business, Entrepreneurship, and Technology program. And while I was at the University of Waterloo, I really understood what it meant to be part of the amazing ecosystem that is Waterloo, that consists of the University of Waterloo. And from that network, that experience, and that education, I went on to start a business, Angle Media Group, and we turned 14 this year. And we've had the opportunity of continuing to work with the University of Waterloo specifically, as well as a lot of the startups, incubators, and different innovations that have come out of the University of Waterloo. So I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce you to Eileen. Eileen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Eileen Agata. I'm a recent environmental engineering grad at UW, and I'm also currently a part-time MBET student as we speak. So those are some of the academic hats I wear. I'm also the founder of Be Blended, which is essentially a tech platform focused on the Black hair care industry. And I'm also wearing another hat where I am part-time working with a VC firm called Emerald. So those are a little bit about me. It kind of touches upon not only the startup world, but my Ent experience and now the venture capital sector. So that's a little bit about me for now.
Thank you, Eileen, and I can't wait to hear some of the answers to the questions we have planned for the panel later today. Michael, can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Phillips, co-founder of Vena Medical. We provide physicians with the world's smallest camera, capable of going inside of veins and arteries to help them treat stroke. So I'm a graduate of mechanical engineering from the University of Waterloo in 2017. I also did an option in entrepreneurship, which kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of starting a company when I graduated University of Waterloo. And Vena Medical is actually our 4th year design project for our engineering course. So we were able to start that as a company and start full time immediately after graduating. So we're very fortunate and very thankful for all the resources that University of Waterloo provided.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. We'll jump right into it. So entrepreneurship. You've probably all heard the word entrepreneurship. It is a big word and it means many things, and it's very exciting, and it is embedded across the University of Waterloo campus, across the region of Kitchener-Waterloo. And it is amazing how this ecosystem works so well together in the region of Kitchener-Waterloo. So one fun fact, or a did you know, the University of Waterloo is Canada's most innovative university for the last 29 years running. That is a very impressive stat. And we'll talk a little bit about education and acceleration. So on the education side, there are lots of different options and resources for students to apply to and attend and take part in. The Conrad School of Entrepreneurship and Business. So that's the program that's the faculty that Eileen and myself, she's currently enrolled and I graduated from many years ago. And within that program, there are lots of different options. You have a business entrepreneurship and technology courses, enterprise co-op, also known as e-co-op, the entrepreneurship option in engineering that I think Michael mentioned, and the Masters of Business Entrepreneurship and Technology program, MBET. And I'll now toss it over to Patricia to talk about acceleration.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Athena. And even just hearing the quick introductions from everybody got me very excited for what's to come. But just briefly, just to let you know about from the accelerations side. So if you're looking to definitely take your idea to a product, the list goes beyond just some of the terms and names that are mentioned on this specific slide, but velocity might be something that you have heard of before. We've got concept, which is the pre-incubator component of velocity, which is more for students on campus, definitely looking to get started. If it's getting support through funding by participating in specific case pitch competitions, for instance, if it's finding a mentor, whatever the support looks like, concept and velocity are something that all students and even members of the Waterloo and Kitchener-Waterloo region are able to take advantage of. Velocity itself has been successful in over the last 10 years, really helping early founders, again, take their idea, help them accelerate and provide them with any resources needed to succeed in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And then another resource that you'll hear a bit more about just shortly from Eileen's own experiences. But on campus, we are privileged to have something called Greenhouse, which is through St. Paul's University College, which supports students from more of that social innovation and impact side of things. So if it's technically based, social based, you've definitely got lots of great resources on campus and off campus to help you turn that idea into something, into a solution, a product, etc. And last but not least, before we wrap up this presentation portion of the session, something to highlight and something really unique about University of Waterloo is that whatever you create here, you invent. We call it our creator-owned intellectual property, which grants ownership to the inventor, which is very unique to Waterloo, but something that you won't actually find across many other Canadian universities. So before we do focus on the panel discussion, just briefly here, once again, if you've got some questions, you want to chat with our students after the session because you are inspired, we've got something called NChats, and you're always welcome to email eng@uwaterloo.ca. And of course, if you are looking to learn more about what entrepreneurship does look like in our faculty, the amazing things our students are up to, what problems our entrepreneurs, our researchers, our alumni are taking to solve, a great way for you to stay connected and be in the know is to connect with us on social media. So that could be through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or YouTube. There's a lot of great things being shared there. On this note, thank you again for being here. We're going to turn it over completely to our panel discussion.
Okay, Eileen, Michael, ready to answer some questions? Okay, so what made you both choose the University of Waterloo? You had so many choices, so many options, and clearly you ended up at the University of Waterloo. What made you make that amazing and the right decision? What made you make the decision?
So for me, the major attraction to the University of Waterloo was definitely the co-op program. So I knew a few people that had gone through Waterloo Engineering or were in it actively, and of all the schools that I applied to, only a couple of them had co-op programs at the time, but Waterloo's was definitely the most developed. And I knew I wanted to experience a lot of different things. And it sounded like University of Waterloo was going to be able to provide that. So that was pretty much the main reason I ended up choosing University of Waterloo.
Okay, Eileen?
Kind of a similar answer. I wish I knew more back then. I think it was very last minute. I knew I wanted to do something with math and chemistry and physics, but not necessarily business, which is funny how I ended up in this situation. However, I kind of made a pro and con list, and I found similar to Michael that the co-op aspect came up on top. And so that was the main reason I selected it. I'm also based in Toronto, or like grew up in Toronto. So it's close to home, and figured it'd be cool to kind of just dive into that ecosystem and that space at Waterloo through engineering. Yeah, environmental, I just was so curious about how do I save the world from a technical standpoint. And that's kind of how I ended up in that position.
So I'll actually chime in on this one. So I chose Waterloo because, I mean, from my perspective, business makes the world go round. Is involved in absolutely everything that we do. And engineering is solving some of the world's greatest problems. So when I found a program like MBET that lived in the Faculty of Engineering, solving the world's greatest problems, focused on business, it was kind of that natural click of these are the types of graduates we need for the future, and I want to be one of those people. So that's a little bit about why I chose the University of Waterloo. Eileen, what would you describe your overall entrepreneurial journey? What inspired you to start Be Blended?
Yeah, so I could talk forever about that.
Elevator pitch. Give me your elevator
pitch. No, of course. So entrepreneurial journey, Be Blended was started from a personal problem. So long story short, fortunately through co-op, you get to go to different companies, maybe move locations. And so I was working in Ottawa, moved there, had my rent sorted out, had my job sorted out, but didn't think I needed a hairstylist sorted out. Months went by, and I thought, okay, maybe let me just find a hairstylist nearby. Did a Google search, within a 2-kilometer radius, about 15 hair salons popped up. Walked into every single one of them, and unfortunately, all of them turned me away. Half of them were hostile, mainly because my hair is typically in an afro, and unfortunately, they didn't know how to work on it. And that was 2017 at the time. So, figured it out, fortunately found a hairstylist, ended up finding that and solving my own problem. However, went back to Waterloo, couldn't sit on my hands about it. It was so strange. I thought, we've been to the moon. I can't find a hairstylist. What's going on here? And so I ended up trying to solve my own problem. The longer story I can answer in questions in the future, but essentially I was trying to solve my own problem. Once I dove into that and had Be Blended, I realized, I'm still a student. What can I do on campus that can actually help my journey? Stumbled upon Greenhouse, which is a social impact incubator on campus from St. Paul's, and took some BET courses. So that education slide, I did all of them somehow. So I ended up, doing BET courses, doing enterprise co-op where I got to work on Be Blended full time. And now I'm doing my MBET. So I kind of just dove right in, and my entrepreneurship journey kind of started from solving my own problem.
And I can tell you, as you continue to dive into grow your business, everything will always go back to Waterloo. You'll have the resources, the colleagues, the network to continue to solve problems that arise in your own business. Michael, can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and what was the problem you were looking to solve?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in New Brunswick, and my parents are professionals and things like that. So I never really knew what entrepreneurship was. People starting, used car dealerships and things like that were what I saw as entrepreneurship growing up. So then when I came to University of Waterloo, it wasn't really on my radar, but it really opened up my eyes to what was going on at Velocity and through the MBET program. Really made things interesting. And so I ended up doing a co-op at a very small startup. It was just the 2 founders and myself. And back then it was Max Mixology, is Artesian, and they're doing pretty well. But that was my first experience kind of seeing what it was like being the founder of a company. And obviously it's very stressful. It's a ton of responsibility, a big burden. But I knew that they kind of had another level. They unlocked another level above what it was like working at a typical company. And I realized I wanted that. So within my friend group, one guy that I've been living with, my co-founder, Phil, was my roommate at the time. And we just started about talking about starting our own companies and building our own companies and what that would look like. We realized a unique advantage that we had was that between Phil and I, we have 7 physicians in our immediate family. So we wanted to take advantage of that. So we started talking to these physicians about problems that they have on a day-to-day basis. And one of them is a physician that goes through veins and arteries to treat different diseases. And he kind of explained how they're using X-ray to do this right now. And he wanted a camera. And that made a lot of sense to me. My dad's a general surgeon. 100% of colonoscopies used to be done with X-ray. Now 95% of them are done with colonoscope. So it seemed like a very logical next for the industry. And so that's what we set out to do, and just make a tiny camera and kind of revolutionize the way that they're doing these procedures.
Awesome. And so you talked a little bit about co-op and that co-op experience. So that is one of the defining factors of the University of Waterloo, something, they've always done, they've always had in comparison to other universities across Canada and around the world. Can each of you tell me a little bit about your co-op experience? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, my co-op experience was very interesting. At first, it was a bit tough to get a job, but once you had a little bit of experience, it made things a lot easier, kind of after your first co-op. And at that point, I went to the University of Waterloo wanting to design cars. I was really passionate about that. And I got my first automotive job, and I realized I hate automotive. And I'm really happy I found that on my second co-op, rather than going through an entire engineering degree and then realizing after that you don't actually like that specific area. So most of my co-ops was probably finding out what I don't like rather than what I do like. But towards the end, I did figure out that, entrepreneurship was super interesting. I also worked at Synaptive Medical, which is another University of Waterloo founded company that does neurosurgery, medical devices. And so that kind of opened my eyes to just enough to be dangerous, know about the FDA process, know about regulatory quality and that sort of stuff, biocompatibility, and maybe, just know enough to be dangerous, basically, on what it would take to design a medical device and bring that to market. So having all of that experience has been extremely valuable, and being able to try out a lot of different things and realize what you don't like just as much as what you do like has been a very valuable experience.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's key. The co-op experiences allowed you to kind of dip your toe in the things you thought you wanted to do and what you want to be when you grow up. And then you realize that you love it or you hate it before you've gone through the entire program. So you have an opportunity to pivot as you did. And seems like things are going well for you. Eileen, tell us a little bit about your co-op experience.
Yeah, likewise. My co-op experience was kind of all over the place. So I know there's some of my classmates at the time that would streamline their co-op experience and kind of try to have everything focused on their exact degree that they're studying. For me, I was just curious about a lot of things. And so my experience ranged from, startup to large corporate, from private to public sector. To give you kind of a glimpse, I started off, at Maple Leaf Foods and their tech department. I have such a for customer service people nowadays. And then, dove into Manulife Financial and their business analyst role, and then thought, let me try engineering and the civil aspect as well as the environmental aspect, and worked with the government of Canada. Then curious about the TTC, worked there. And I think the pivotal moment was when I worked at a startup in Belgium called Shape. Amazing company. I feel like a proud mom, even though I'm not the ones that founded the company. But they were similar to Michael's experience. It was a small team. You work directly with the founders, and you can see your work impact directly to the startup, and you can see how you have a pivotal role, even though you're just a co-op student. So I worked there. And that's where the light bulb started turning on in terms of entrepreneurship and the curiosity of things. I never really thought about entrepreneurship as a career. I kind of just thought, you just go to engineering school and become an engineer of some sort and work at a company. But I realized that I love problem solving and I love things being different. And I love kind of going through my days, somewhat not expecting what I'm going to be confronted with, but having to really, look at different things every day. So fortunately, after working at Shape at the startup in Belgium, I said, I'm curious about building my own. So I did an enterprise co-op, which is one of the really cool entrepreneurship features at the University of Waterloo, where essentially you get to work on your startup or your idea, your thought. It doesn't even have to be on paper yet, for a term, and kind of go through the process of what it would be like to be a founder. So similar to what Michael was saying about, figuring out what I don't want to do, you can go through e-coop and realize I could never be an entrepreneur. I don't want to do this. It's too much work. It's too volatile. I don't like it. But for me, that was the complete opposite. I thought this was absolutely amazing. The volatile part is not the greatest, but you push through when you're passionate about something. And so I did that 2 terms in a row, actually, before graduating, because I wanted to be blended. But my co-op experience, I definitely would say, is the pivotal moment for me to understand entrepreneurship, but then also, really know what I don't like to do.
Awesome. And so Eileen, I'll toss this one to you, because it sounds like you've really used a lot of the on-campus and off-campus resources to grow your business. So what are some of the on-campus and off-campus resources you've used that were very specific for an entrepreneurial minded individual?
Yeah, so great question. I started off, first of all, like I said, not knowing entrepreneurship, not knowing how to spell it, not knowing a darn thing about it. And fortunately, I stumbled upon Greenhouse. With this talk right now, I hope people can know, going into Waterloo and being a part of the ecosystem, that there are these resources there. I didn't know. I just kind of stumbled upon it. And so Greenhouse is essentially where I started budding as an entrepreneur. They kind of held my hand and what is a pitch, and how can you condense something in 3 minutes? That's too short. And learning about the ecosystem. So Greenhouse was one of the resources. You essentially, I think it was an entrepreneurship in residence program that I was in, where you kind of lived on campus and you had workshops and you were walked through just entrepreneurship from a social standpoint with a coach who's now my mentor. And then after that, after I kind of dove into that, they introduced me to Velocity, which now is concept on campus. And essentially there's pitch competitions for $5,000. And I learned how to pitch and feel confident in front of an audience and kind of go through that aspect. Through that, I then was made aware of the BET courses, the BET courses that allow you to kind of take a little course here and there about entrepreneurship and technology and business, and understand little things like business model canvases and market research and all that stuff. And so mine was really organic, going through all of that. Through that, I learned about eCoop, which I explained earlier that I did as well. And through being in the eCoop program, you're located in Conrad, and then you see MBET students. So they're the master's students, and you kind of come across them. And then I thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool to do after undergrad. And so I would say, went the lost and found, and then kind of organically went through entrepreneurship through Waterloo. But the resources there now are all the ones that I mentioned. And so that's kind of how I utilized my experience at Waterloo for entrepreneurship.
Awesome. And Michael, I know you mentioned you wanted to go into engineering to design and build cars. So you went into mechanical engineering. How did mechanical engineering prepare you for the path of an entrepreneur and to start your business?
Yeah, so as I was going through my degree, I basically figured out how to become a problem solver. It was always something that I loved to do, and it's one of the main reasons that I became the black sheep in my family and went into engineering, was because I really enjoyed that. So I really developed that skill throughout my entire undergrad. And I also figured out how to work extremely hard. I did do a couple varsity sports, rugby and track and field throughout my degree. And so I had to be very good at time management and be able to complete all my assignments and study and everything like that, even while I was kind of busy with other things. So all of those skills really helped me out for when I decided to start a company. And the program itself is designed very well to allow you to solve problems. So we had a third-year design course that we learned kind of the fundamentals of designing different solutions to different problems. And when you look at the fundamentals of design, it's actually very similar to how you regulate and control quality for medical devices. So our whole quality management system is essentially what we learned in those courses. It's just core, fundamental, good design. And so picking up those skills and seeing everything for the second time when we started our company made things a lot easier. So even your fourth year design project, you really apply all of those fundamentals, and that was really valuable for us. Where the entrepreneurship side came in, as we were taking all of our BET courses, every single major project we made Vina Medical, and so that made things really easy on the business side, because we were developing all of these things specifically for our company. So our business model canvas, our business plan, all of this different stuff, we applied directly to the company. So when we were going through the fourth year design project, pitch competitions and everything like that, we were able to kind of have a business mind to solving the engineering problem that we were solving. And that kind of gave us a leg up in all of the competitions and everything. And so we ended up being pretty successful on the grant circuit at the end of the degree. So, and I think that was because of the combination of what we learned in our mechanical engineering degree, as well as the being business minded about it as we were going through it.
Awesome. And so, being in an engineering program, as I think, Michael, you mentioned, you learn how to work really hard. And so I'm sure you both faced some challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way that, future students should have a little bit of perspective and hear about from you first, so that they can prepare themselves versus, dealing with it head on once they're in the program?
I think one thing that's good to know is that it is a really hard degree. It's not easy, and we all have struggles. And I think that's good to know going in, because as you're experiencing it, you feel a little bit lonely sometimes. But it's good to know that kind of everybody's gone through that. I definitely had some courses that I struggled in. I managed to pass linear algebra with a 54. So it's still a pass. So, so I think it is, good to know, especially for how high achieving the students that are coming in are now. I mean, it's incredible, kind of the resumes that we're seeing as we're hiring co-op students that are just coming into the degree, and the marks that they were able to achieve in high school. It is a bit of a reality check when you come to university and you're not getting the same 90s that you were getting before and stuff like that. So I think that's good to keep in mind, and it's might allow you to work harder and really make sure that you're learning how to learn. And that's kind of the main reason for a degree like this. And what you did in high school isn't necessarily going to work in university. So you have to keep iterating and keep getting better. And eventually that's what happens as an entrepreneur, is you just kind of keep that continuing, which is awesome.
Perfect. So Eileen, what is the one skill you take away from the University of Waterloo and all the programs you've taken part in, resources you've taken advantage of, that you use every single day as you build your business?
Oh, only one.
One.
Yeah. I would say, I would say perhaps the skill of persevering, grit, if that can be jumbled up together. I think, Waterloo Eng just puts you through the ringer. Like you're just learning, and then there's things due, and, course, everything is just in your way, and you have to really learn to multitask. And there's hard moments in Waterloo, but it's okay, because you'll make it out. You got in for a reason. It means you're capable. But through, I think, grit in terms of academics, sure, of course, but then also grit and perseverance in terms of entrepreneurship. My academic background's in environmental engineering, and with Be Blended, we're essentially a software company. We connect Black women to hairstylists worldwide, and we really focus on improving the lives of these freelance hairstylists through software. And so I did software engineering. So there's a lot that goes into play being a founder of a group, and you constantly have to be pointed towards a North Star, which takes a lot of grit and perseverance. So those are a few things. If I could add a little, there's storytelling goes a long way. You always have to be pitching, always got to be talking about things, about yourself, about your startup, about what you studied, clearly what I'm doing now. So storytelling is something also that I picked up. So that's two things. So sorry for breaking the rules.
No worries. And last question, and both of you should take an opportunity to answer this one. What advice would you pass along to future students interested in pursuing entrepreneurship throughout their undergraduate studies and beyond? And Eileen, since you're already on screen here, why don't you go ahead and give us your piece of advice?
I would definitely say do it. But practically try to get a grasp of your academics first. So first year for me was a hot mess, but I made it out. So I would say in that regard, I would say first kind of get right, kind of try and see what makes sense, your learning patterns, and then really start searching for a problem that you want to solve. I think once you get to that point, there's so many resources that you can reach out to, so many people. There's lots of people willing to help, even if you don't feel like you know what to do as an entrepreneur or how to start. There's people that can really walk you through the process. So just get your basics done with academics and then kind of dive in and get curious on campus.
I really like that piece of advice. And I know it sounds simple and almost and not necessarily boring, but simple and kind of to the point. And I'm a mentor in the undergraduate program in engineering. And that's I spend a lot of time having that conversation. I chat with new students like, my friend's doing this and I need to be doing that. And why haven't I started my business yet? And they put all this undue pressure on themselves. And, same advice you just gave there. I say, focus on your studies and kind of what Michael said, learn how to learn and it will all fall into place. So I really like that piece of advice. Michael, your piece of advice.
One thing that I did that I found was really interesting was once I discovered that I was interested in entrepreneurship throughout my degree was my roommates and I had this mastermind sort of meeting. Basically every night at dinner, we would go around the table and come up with a problem that we thought would be interesting. And then we'd kind of just go through what would the potential market size be, what would be the potential business model, what would a potential solution be, and all these different things. And we just got into a habit of looking at problems in a different way that is more entrepreneurial, because I think engineers especially get very solution focused. And if you can be more problem focused and really understand the problem, I think that's one of the main differences between an engineer and an entrepreneur is really understanding the problem from much more beyond sort of the mechanical solution. Here's a solution, here's how it works, that kind of thing. So looking at problems that way. So while you're going through your co-ops, be looking at problems that your employers are having and problems that you run into while you're on co-op, and just kind of make a list of them and go through the experiment of quantifying the problem, looking at the market size, and just kind of get good at rough order of magnitude calculations. And so that way, by the time you get to your fourth year design project, you've banked up a ton of ideas that you might be able to use as your fourth year design project. A lot of people kind of use their fourth year design project as kind of an afterthought. They show up to their fourth year and they have a week or two to try to come up with an idea. But if you're thinking about it more throughout your degree, now you'll have a lot more ammo basically when the time comes to make a decision.
Awesome. And I guess one small piece of advice for me is, someone said this to me when I was in MBET, your network equals your net worth. And not for to necessarily mean what it says, but basically make a lot of friends. Make a lot of friends that are like-minded, that want to sit around at dinner hour and do mastermind and solve problems with you, because those are the people that, after you graduate, or when you're in third year or fourth year and you met them in first year, you're calling them up, I have a problem, can you help me? So make a lot of friends. I know, as an undergraduate student, especially in such a renowned program like the University of Waterloo, people tend to zero in, really focus, and sometimes there's a nature of competition, which is awesome and healthy. But I think at the crux of it, make as many friends as you can, because you are all there for a lot of the same reasons. And it's really rare to find an interesting group of people that is like-minded, that has the same goals. And so, really, it's a special moment. It's a special time. And if you choose to attend the University of Waterloo, that's my piece of advice. So thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. Lots of great tidbits of information, lots of great advice, and hearing from your experiences. So I think the team here really appreciates that. And I'm sure, future students, potential students will send emails over to Patricia through the social channels and the email address, and maybe we can flip those your way. So if there's any other advice or thoughts that you have, we can get that information over to students. So thank you very much.